My name is Vanessa. I would say my laughter represents me the most because you can usually hear me laughing before you see me. I thoroughly love playing outside. I think just, I don't know, I just really take a lot of like pride and pleasure of being outside in my backyard and hanging out or cleaning up or mowing the lawn. I'm a huge football fan, baseball fan. So if I get the opportunity, I absolutely love to go to a live game. The stadium, the atmosphere, I love it. I also can get into like just having a good movie night with friends and my partner, some pizza and a good horror movie. Like, I'm in it to win it. So my parents, originally I'm from Paso, Texas, um, and moved here right around the tail end. I was in fifth grade, 8, 9, whatever that age is. And it was quite a bit of a culture shock for me. Everything from people, places, and things. Like everything was different. There was mountains here. There is not much mountains you could see in El Paso. Not a lot of desert anymore. The houses were different. I think the first thing that I was shocked about was that there was no bars on the windows. The houses in Colorado, the houses in Longmont didn't have bars on the windows, and nobody had like a metal door. I was like, I don't remember if I said it to myself or if I said it out loud, but I do know the thought of, aren't they afraid they're going to get robbed? So I was so shocked by that. And then I remember being excited by all the colors and the different smells, in my new bedroom. And I was excited that at the end of the street, there was like a farm that had a bunch of goats. El Paso, Texas is a border town. It's heavily populated with Mexicanos and other minorities. There's an army base there. And all of my family on my mom's side lived there, and we all lived really close. And I saw my cousins, my grandmas, my tias, all on a regular basis and everything. And so when we moved, I don't think I fully gathered what that looked like because I was so young. Because I know my parents had multiple conversations with me, and I know they moved. My father had gotten a job in Boulder, Colorado, and I knew that this was an opportunity not only for my parents, but for me to experience something different and quite honestly have a chance at life. There is quite a bit of violence, and there's quite a bit of gang activity, and there's also opportunity, but the gang activity and the violence that happens in a border town is just much bigger. And so moving to Colorado, I remember the night before, I had hid in a closet because I think it all came to. And I just did not want to go. Eventually, got in the U-Haul, we made the drive, settled in. Cultures were very different. And so being that young and trying to figure out, I didn't have any close family. I didn't have the opportunity to get super close to my dad's family because majority lived in Colorado. So I was just kind of lost and floundering and wanting to feel at home. And I also always wanted a dog. I had a dog in El Paso, and she passed away from age. And where my dad worked, there was 2 big Rottweilers. They were guard dogs. And I loved them. I absolutely love them. I used to actually I would make my parents nervous, which means that they would use a little bit of a stronger tone with me because I would get too close to the area that they stayed in to guard because I just wanted to love on them. And I did not comprehend or want to comprehend that they're guard dogs. And they seemed friendly to me. So I remember my mom or dad or both were on the phone and they called and they said, we have a surprise for you. And they came home with a Rottweiler puppy. And I was over the moon excited. Immediately called him Bear. And we were inseparable from the moment he passed. I mean, we went, everywhere around the neighborhood. There was times where he followed me to school when I walked to school, even up until like high school. Yeah, so that was probably the most securest thing my parents could have done for me, was give me something that made me feel safe while I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing in a brand new town. Yeah. I guess apparently I had been saying it until they showed up with Rottweiler. And I've loved the way they look, their demeanor, how big and squeezable and soft they are. I also like how tough they look. Yeah, so Bear was such a sweet dog. He definitely was kind of like that soul dog for me. Like, we've had Rottweilers since him, and I currently have a dog now, but he was my first Rottweiler. And he was my first dog that I could really comprehend that this was my dog. And especially like think about being like 8 or 9 and being to a whole new place, and then having this being unconditionally love you and be like your partner in crime, So like I didn't have to worry like, are they gonna think I'm funny? Are they gonna think I'm to this or to that? Like Bear loved me and I loved him back. I went to the last part of 5th grade, and it was just school. I don't remember feeling like extremely nervous or any of the things until I had a few altercations that weren't the best. And then that kind of bleeded into middle school. So the culture shock was obvious. It was big, and the culture was different. I mean, right down to, like, if we're going to be honest, right down to my skin color, right? I was, I think, one of the only minorities in my elementary school. I don't remember seeing any other brown kids. In middle school, I think there was me and another African-American boy, and they're pretty prominent in this community as well. But like it was just an obvious thing. I was threatened with expulsion in elementary school because I handed the scissors apparently the wrong way, and that was deemed threatening. I did it in a threatening way. And so they were going to expel me, or so they had a conversation with my parents. And so there's a lot of that. And I'll be honest with you, that prejudice and that racism did not leave after 5th grade. I had some encounters in middle school, some encounters in high school, just encounters around the town. So it's an interesting thing because in some way that unfortunately removed a lot of my need and love for my own culture and my own language. I had to learn that the language of English and Spanish were not as fluid here. I had to learn that a few times the hard way during school and being told that we speak English in the classroom and English only. I stopped speaking Spanish very quickly after we moved here. I don't know exactly when. My mom and dad speak fluent Spanish. Both my parents are college educated, very smart, very active. And so I can understand Spanish for the most part. Now I say that I know enough Spanish to get me in trouble. And it's more of like, not the partial understanding, it's more that speaking, right? The slang term is Spanglish, where you would say a sentence and maybe one of those 2 words of the sentence were Spanish. or one of those two words were English. So I was fluent in both at one point. I was fluent in both languages. It wasn't uncommon for me to have conversations with my friend where it would start English and go into Spanish, or a little bit of both. Because there were some words that I didn't know as English, but I knew them in the Spanish version, right? I also had cousins and tias and tios who lived in Juarez. And going to see them, depending on the line of the border, only took an hour to 4 hours, right? Just like as if you would went to go visit your family member in Loveland or Fort Collins or whatnot. It just was an extra step across the border, right? And I obviously now know as an adult it's much bigger than that, but as a kid, I didn't know any different, you know. Then fast forward to not speaking Spanish anymore, being able to understand it when it's spoken to me, but respond it only in English, and it almost started to feel like an instinctual thing, where like there were times where I wanted to respond in Spanish because I felt safe, whether in my home or ordering food or something like that, where I felt safe enough, but I couldn't recall it. You know how frustrating that is to not be able to recall your own language? Then on top of it, fast forward and then having to take a language class in high school. So I take Spanish. And like hoping that this would trigger like thought process and whatever, and it didn't. It was so difficult. So guess what I did in Spanish class? I made a friend and we messed around the entire time. And I don't even know if I passed that class or not. Like at one point we had to build a family tree, and like we decided, right or wrong, probably mostly wrong, and being a brat as a teenager, we decided that we were going to combine our family trees and the teacher would never know because we all look alike. And guess what happened? She didn't know. She really didn't know that we weren't cousins, that we didn't have the same. She believed word by word. So like, that is the severity of it, right? That is the severity of like tact and approach. If the teacher would have been, and I very clearly remember hearing say, no, only English. Then I remember hearing it in the playground, only English, Vanessa. I mean, I got asked from kids when I was a little, like, where do you live? And I would tell them, they're like, oh, I didn't know Mexicans were allowed to live on the west side. It's like what? I don't know, 93, 94? Because of all of that, there were certain choices that I internally made and externally made, and there were certain behaviors. I created this very hard exterior shell to protect myself. But then at the same time, I also met one of the many long friends that I've met in school at the beginning or at the end of 5th grade and the beginning of 6th grade. Like 2 or 3 of those friends are still my friends today. We don't get to see each other as much. We don't probably get to hang out as much, but like at any point, can we pick up the phone and call each other? Yes. And were they safe people? Yes. I have a friend in particular, her name is Kat, and we always joked about how I was the darkest kid in school and she was the whitest kid in school, and we were the best of friends. I would go outside and get a great tan, and she would go outside and get a sunburn. Like little things like that. And I don't know how politically correct all of this is, but this is my story. Trickled in that there was some really good experiences here in Longmont. I know that like every teenager, I went through like, the being in high school, junior, senior, in your early 20s, like, oh, Longmont's so boring. I don't want to live here. I want to go to Denver. I want to do all the things. And here I am, 42. I own a house in Longmont. I thoroughly enjoy living in Longmont. I'm in no delusion of what Longmont is and what it is not, but I can accept what it is not where I was when I was younger. Is there still more work to be done? Absolutely, I'm sure. And all around, and probably not just even more so in the world that we live in, not so just in the like skin color or the racism, but there is a lot of other issues I've had multiple dreams of, moving to a different place, moving down south, all these things and whatever. And then some of the reason why I didn't move from Longmont and bought a house here was just because of life. Like, I don't know if it was that methodical of a decision. So we'll say that first. I've owned my current home now, going on 2 years. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of the reason why I purchased a home in Longmont was out of normal convenience that a lot of people have. I worked in Longmont. My parents live here in Longmont. Maybe the decision that I was going to purchase a home and not live in an apartment, that I was going to purchase a home in Longmont, maybe that was the decision of like, I'm making Longmont my home base. I also had some pretty good lumps of time where I myself was going through some very difficult things, and kind of lost sense of who I was, where I was, all of the things, that when, with help, I got my life back together, it started here again in Longmont. I have to give a lot of props to my parents, in the way that they gave me faith about Longmont and the way that they gave me faith about change and the way that because again, I've probably said it a couple different times, my parents are very active in the city of Longmont. And in my opinion, whether it's skewed or not, because I love my parents, in the most positive way. And that doesn't always mean when you have a positive impact that it comes in such a nice, neat little fluffy package. Sometimes that means you have to fluff the feathers and you have to ask hard questions and do things that have not done before, and create community that is difficult sometimes to bring out, to create that community and build bridges because of the separation, right? And my parents, I believe, have a lot to do with that. And being around that, seeing that, participating at times with them, it's easy for me to see the difference of where we are today, even with still more growth to come, just like with anything, into comparison to where it was. But I think beyond the logical part of that or the logistics part of that is that, the choosing to still have friends here, the choosing to be here because my parents are here, the choosing to work in Longmont. And then some of it's because I like Longmont. Just so weird to say it like 42 and like having a flashback of being like a teenager and being like, I can't wait to get out of Longmont and have fun. And now I'm chilling, having fun.